Hello, we are back in the Chula Vista Heritage Museum's RUTH, Remember Us The Holocaust. It's a wonderful exhibit, and during COVID-19, we're making it a point to take this online. So we have featured one of our first videos, and we'll go ahead and send you the link so you can follow it. And in the meantime, I want to talk about books, something that we do in a library. One of my new discoveries is a book by Miriam Katin. She's a Holocaust survivor, and she drew this incredible book. I'm not going to say it's a children's book, but it's a graphic novel book that details what happened in the Holocaust. Good morning. I am with Miriam Katin. I'm going to say morning with Miriam. And Miriam Katin is the author of two books. I'm with the Chula Vista Heritage Museum, South Bay Historical Society, and the exhibit RUTH, Remember Us The Holocaust, is going virtual because of COVID-19. And once the exhibit opens, you can see the exhibit in the Chula Vista Heritage Museum, which is in the Chula Vista Public Library. Today, I'm speaking to an incredible author by the name of Miriam Katin. You can see here are her books, Letting It Go, just absolutely amazing. Graphic novels, but in such a way that I believe this should be in every school. It's just absolutely a brilliant book. And this particular book is called We Are On Our Own. If I'm not mistaken, this was your first book or your second book?
This is the first book.
This is book number one.
Yes.
A little bit about Miriam. Miriam was born in 1942. You don't look it at all. And right in Hungary during the time of the Holocaust. And when you're that young, when you're only 2 years old, it's very difficult to remember things. But I am going to ask you this question. How far back can you remember?
So when we had to escape Budapest, I was 2 years old, and a month short of my second year. And my mother spirited us out of the city in disguise. She had purchased
in disguise.
Yeah, she was there. She was dressed as a peasant woman, and our certificate, fake identification paper, said that she's a peasant girl from the country with an illegitimate child. And I even remember the name that was my name at the time in that.
Oh my gosh.
So what I remember, I think I remember, if it wasn't a dream or something that my mother told me was made up in my mind, but I remember particularly being in a dark room with flickering light, and my mother is holding me. The ceiling seemed to be closed, and a woman was handing me a piece of poppy seed strudel. And I specifically, and I still love poppy seed strudel. And so that was one thing. I must have been hungry. And then I remember a little white dog in the area hanging out there, and remembers standing on a hillside looking down over some other town or something, and there were airplanes coming by, and the bombing was bombing. And
did you hear a lot of bombing? Did you hear a lot of the sounds?
No, I don't remember particularly, but my mother told me, well, we had to, eventually we had to go into the wine cellar. There were wineries there. And that area, the Lake Balaton, where there's a very famous vineyard. And so we have wine cellars, and that's where we survived bombings. So my mother told me that for a long time, loud noises really scared me, you know.
What about today? Do loud noises bother you today?
No, not at all. No.
Okay.
None of that stayed, you know. None of stress or fear or anything like that. But, you know.
Miriam, you are an award-winning graphic novelist. You are known around the world for your work. You were honored in 2007 at Comic-Con with the INKSPOT Award, which is a
Yes.
very prestigious award. I believe you took your mother with you to the award.
Coming,
Um,
yeah.
Boy, can you imagine? How old was your mom at the time? She had to be in her 90s?
Yes, 80s, late 80s maybe. She died
Yeah,
last
late
June. She
80s.
was 101.
Your mother died at the age of 101.
Yeah, she was 2 weeks short of her 101st birthday.
Oh my gosh. And that
Last
was
June,
just last year,
last June. I mean, last June,
last
but
June.
second, yes. And when I received the invitation to Comic-Con, which I didn't even know it existed, honestly, suddenly this letter came. The letter came, and there's 2 tickets for two, and the hotel and everything. I called them on a telephone. It was a phone number. I said, "Is this serious?" He said, "Yes."
Oh my gosh.
And I decided that I think that my mother should come with me because, and when I was talking, when I had my talk,
Uh-huh.
and I said, my mother, 1944, my mother took me to a journey, and this time I'm taking her to a very different journey. So I took her
Absolutely.
to, yes,
I
and
mean,
that's
oh
all.
my God.
And she was,
From,
yeah, was very serious, and we had a great time. We had a ball, what they do there, and all this. I have pictures of my mother with this the comic characters, the pirates and
uh-huh.
yeah,
This is
stormtroopers, and we
Miriam.
enjoyed it so much.
When did you realize that you could pick up a pencil or a writing utensil and create emotion, passion, that the things that you draw are so, how do you say, it's a language. It's a language of its own. It's the most universal language because anybody can pick this up and understand without the writing. This is just, these books are just such a treasure, and I believe they need to be in every school, and especially now with Comic-Con this month coming, it is so important for anybody who sees this to really look at your books. Question again, when did you realize you could pick up a pencil and
Yeah.
do images?
Well, the thing is that I never went to school. My formal education ended at barely finishing ninth grade in Budapest. Never was in school again, any art school or anything. But I always drew. I was drawing, especially loved drawing people in motion, faces all the time. So then, when the time came at age 63, when I did this, 64, when I did this book, age 64, and I decided to do it. And I just went and did it, and people asking me about my style, and the style really came in the tip of my pencil as I started to draw, and it was in my head what to say and the images, and I was just doing it. First time in my life, I was just doing it.
And the words that go with your writing and the way, I mean, you hand drew everything, every letter, every word,
Of course,
correct?
of course. And I tried, if you notice, the writing, the character, the book, the letters, I
Uh-huh.
tried to make them like distressed. They're a little bit like shaky.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
surprised
absolutely.
that it was not noted in more places, that I tried to have it like a distressed, look to stories.
They're absolutely incredible. And it's interesting because here, the book that I'm looking at is black and white, and yet there's only one page in this particular book that is of color.
I think there are three.
Three? Okay.
Three of them, at least, I think it's three, because those are the present time, which is actually goes showing the present of the time when my son, my firstborn Aaron,
Uh-huh.
was at the age that I was
Uh-huh. Wow.
during that time. And I looked at him, and look how bright he is, and how understanding and curious and talking. And it scared me that what I went through at that time was, I must have been aware of it, and how it completely left my memory completely blank. But at that time, I must have lived through it with a tremendous consciousness of being talking and seeing and observing and question. So that really it frightened me, that watching him at that age, that I was that age during that time.
Right. Yeah, actually, you're right. There's a few images that are in color, and I'm going to make a comparison. In the Holocaust in Theresienstadt, there was Leo Haas, who did an image. I'm going to go ahead and show it. And do you see this image?
Yes.
And it is so unbelievably powerful of what he drew. And mind you, this particular magazine is from the Bet Theresian, and it is from January 2020. To me, it's one of the most powerful images. And today, when I look at one of the most powerful images, it's the one that you drew. It's so universal. And here we are, when he drew this, I think he drew it in 1942, 1943. Yeah, in Theresienstadt. I'm trying to see when it was. He was in the ghetto from 1941 to 1942, and yet you can see that when he was doing this image, what he's doing is saying, pushing the Nazis, but looking for the sun. And yet I see here how you have the light, and then how it is covered with the darkness. Yes. Because of this flag. Miriam, when I saw this image, and I'm just going to go ahead and read if it's okay. And then one day, God placed the light with the darkness. Wow.
Yeah, and blocking out life itself. That's what I said it, or I wrote it maybe, that the darkness, blocking out life itself.
It's to replace the light with the darkness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. It's amazing. And we're going to be doing our Comic-Con panel at the end of the month. They've already announced our date. I'll get all the information to people.
My birthday, 23rd of July.
What day in July?
23rd.
Oh my gosh. So the day that they're going to feature our Comic-Con panel is your birthday. Yeah. Our Comic-Con panel consists of Stephen Smith from the USC Shoah Foundation, Esther Finder from Generations of the Shoah, Matt Dunford, who's an incredible historian that I think you enjoyed talking to. And of course, our featured person is Miriam Katin. Miriam, again, you have a pencil, you have a paper, a chalk, and when did you realize that you were capable of doing all these different images and creating the books? And tell me how does one do that?
Yeah, honestly, I really have no idea. Before I did the book, my very first, I can send that to you just so that you can see it. My very first comic was, I think, was a 6-page story about right after the war, something. And that was the first time that I actually did this type of artwork. And the second one was already for my publisher, Drone and Quarterly. And that was about the Hungarian Uprising, which was a 12-page work already. And I already knew how to do this. I knew as soon as I started to do this, what you call comics, I already did what you see there with no hesitation. It was really, and I never done anything like that before.
Yeah.
I did, you know, painting, drawing, all kind of things, but not this type of thing. And I don't believe I had any example of somebody I said, oh, I would like to do it like that, you know, like him or her. The artist, the comic artist I admired has nothing to do with my style, what I call now style, yes.
Mm.
It just came right out. And frankly, when I look back on it now and I look at the book, and you know, it's ridiculous when I heard authors saying that the book has a life of its own and they don't have much to do with it. It was created by some, and I used to laugh at it as, oh, don't give me some crap, you know. But no, I understand. I'm looking at the book and I don't know where it came from. Honestly, I have no idea where it came. The second book was different. It's very much in the present. But the first one, I have no idea where it came from. Yes.
Miriam, you know, it's interesting because I wrote a book and I did it 2 years ago and I don't think about it. And then all of a sudden somebody will say something and then I can relate back to what I wrote.
Yeah.
And its validity, it validates what we've done. Do you remember every single page that you've drawn where you can go back and say, yes, on this particular page, I remember why I did this?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yes. And but see, it's always comes up only if I talk to somebody, like, you know, if I have an interview.
Who talked you into doing a book? When, I mean, you were drawing, and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
I have it. How did this happen?
Well, the way it happened was, like I said, in 2000, I did that first very short story that I will send you so you can see. And it was for this anthology that these young people put out that I was working with in MTV and Disney. And it was called Mittel Europa Rerun. And it was a little story about something after the war.
Uh-huh.
And some very important reviewer of comics in California, I don't know, he saw this anthology and he said that my work in it, my short work, 6 pages, would fit into Drawn and Quarterly, even in Drawn and Quarterly. That was that good. So I said to my friends in MTV, what's Drawn and Quarterly? Oh, Miriam, you don't know? I don't know anything. I didn't the world and comics. And so I ran down to the bookstore, and Drawn and Quarterly is the Montreal, one of the most prominent publishers of comics, yes. And I bought, they used to put out a volume 1, 2, 3. I got volume 3. I looked at it and it's, yeah, wow, you know, it's a big deal. So I packed up my, you know, what chutzpah is. You don't do things like that, but I did. With a chutzpah, I wrapped up the book where I was in it and the review, a copy of the review, and I mailed it to Chris Oliveros in Montreal, to Drawn and Quarterly.
Mm-hmm.
And he telephoned me. I almost died. Telephoned me in New York, and he said, well, you know, your work is the best in it, no question about it. So, do you have anything hanging around the house like that in 12 pages? Because they were putting out their next issue.
Right.
Volume 4. I said, oh, of course, sure. I had nothing. I mean, this was the only comic I ever did. Nothing. I ran home and I made damn sure I had 12 pages in a month or so that he was expecting it, you know. And that short story of 12 pages about the Hungarian Uprising was nominated for the Eisner Award in short stories. No, I didn't know who was Eisner or the award or Comic Con, nothing about it. Well, I got a certificate, nominated, it's like Oscars, you
Yes,
always,
it is.
you'll always be nominated to a fantastic,
It is the Oscars of comics,
So
and
if you are nominated, they always say, nominated for Eisner Award. But I did get, I got, for the book, I got a beautiful award in France. It was a very important award.
uh-huh.
But anyway, so when that happened, so the Donald Gordon says, so what's next? So I made up, like, I think a 46-page story about the war. 46 pages, okay, or even 26 pages, little. And when I sent it to them, it was things about that year. I sent it to them, they called me, says, Miriam, this is a book, sit down and do it. This will take you time, but this is a whole book, go get down to it. And I didn't know actually what to do exactly, but I said, well, I better stop doing it.
How long did it take you to do?
I was actually pretty fast. A year altogether, because like when people say how long it takes a long time, but apparently this was so pent up in me that when people ask me how long, I said, well, it just kind of surged out like a diarrhea or a vomit from me.
Did you feel that as you were doing the images that you just couldn't stop, or you just next to the next and the next and the next? It was like,
well, the
time
thing
didn't
is,
exist.
what you do and publishing for publishing is that you first have to write a synopsis, yes, a story line. Then they tell you go ahead, and then you have to do the roughs. So
Right.
the roughs are really, but my publisher says my roughs are almost like the finished work.
I'm sure they are.
So sketchy and wild. So anyway, so then you do the rough, and then if they approve on it, then you start rendering it, And the rendering is always like, like your love is in the roughs, but you have to render it. They're not going to print it that way, just sketched. And so that's when I got down to the nitty-gritty of each page and everything. But it did go fast because...
What do you tell somebody today who has the talent of being able to draw, and how do they start? Would you say everybody's journey is different, or do you believe that everybody's journey is the same?
Well, what I tell, when they ask me, young people, when I go to schools, I like to do it. And I said, well, what you have to first decide is you're putting down the very truest possible, most honest thing that you know, what hurts, what everything. And don't think about, oh, my mother, oh, what does she say, what does she say. If you don't put down the very thing that is in your mind that is pressing to get out, then it's not worth putting the pencil on the paper. You have to be totally honest. And, comics is a very forgiving media. You can have great story in stick figures. I've seen it. You can have great artwork and it's no story, forget about it. It will never work. But Art Spiegelman actually was saying that too. There's no pretty comics, you have to have a great salad story. And that's what I tell people, you must, what wants to come out has to be exactly on the paper. And don't think about, when people ask me about, how did I include me having the diarrhea in a hotel room, and how I put it in, I said, yes, because if I didn't, it would have been like, oh, well, my son wants to live in Berlin and I really hate it. That's nothing. I had to show the physical disturbance connected to the emotions that I had about my son in Berlin, or living in Berlin.
Right.
That's how it came out.
Wow.
And my second visit was that I broke out in something,
Miriam, I have a question for you. First of all, as Stephen Smith said, welcome to your studio as we look behind you. What's on your drafting board? What are you working on now?
Well, probably another rejection from the New Yorker magazine, because New Yorker magazine accepted a cartoon of mine a year ago or so, and I was so excited. But it takes, sometimes they say it takes years for another one, and I had sent them more and more, and there was only rejections. So there's another rejection there probably on my desk that I'm going to send Monday to them, Tuesday. But you have to keep doing it, or else, whatever. So that's that. And then on my other table here, things are piling up that I want to start another book.
Good for you. And you'll let me know when it comes out and what you're going to be doing. And hopefully we'll see what's going to happen at Comic-Con next year, but at least we got through this year, which I'm really excited about. Again, our panel is Art During the Holocaust, but no buts. I am just so grateful to talk to you. Is there anything you want to say to our viewers, or anything that I might have missed? Because I could talk to you for hours. I could sit here and knit a sweater while talking to you. You're just amazing.
Yes. No, well, I really don't have much to say. What I'm surprised about, and was very pleased, the fact that my work is taken so seriously, that that there is such an interest in it. I really didn't expect it. And the fact that I'm invited to places and talk about it, it's just humbling.
Isn't it amazing? Most people think of comics as being happy, funny, joking. And yet you just put the two words together, that people are taking your comics seriously. It's true.
I'm truly humbled by this.
Yeah. You're a wonderful woman to give of your time. You're in New York City. We're doing this Zoom 3 hours apart from each other. And, the fact that now Chula Vista has a touch of Miriam Katin is pretty great. When you come to Comic-Con, I really hope that you'll be able to see what we're doing in our beautiful city of Chula Vista and in our library. And we'll find a way to get your images as we start opening up into our exhibit, because this helps us to never forget.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Miriam.
Starker freilich, ich dem Alke du der Melech,